Kosovo, 2002. Gruesome memorials to a war fought in 1999 pockmark the country. Now the United Nations is introducing the idea of justice. They're starting with housing rights. Hassan Hamdi is a teacher. He's taking UN investigators out to his old village, Shusik, deep in southern Kosovo.
My village was 90% all burned.
Hassan is Albanian, a Kosovo Albanian. He's one of hundreds of thousands of Albanians whose homes were damaged or destroyed in the war 3 years ago.
That is my house.
When the communist dictator Slobodan Milosevic decided to Serbianize Kosovo. The Albanians returned to Kosovo after NATO had bombed Yugoslavia into submission, then took their revenge. Serbians were driven from their homes.
Yes, you can see and hear.
Now both they and Albanians who lost houses, more than 75,000 in all, are looking to unmake the UN mission in Kosovo to introduce the rule of law.
This is my house.
His house wrecked, Hassan found a 2-room apartment in the nearby town of Betina. It's on the top floor of a 7-story walk-up. It's owned by a Serbian woman. Hassan lives here with his wife and 3 children. They neither own the place nor pay rent.
We have only this room, the space for cooking and here to sleep. After the war, when I saw my house was burned, I came here, and after that came a woman and said, "She's my flat." I said, "I'm really so sorry, but now I don't have a place when can I go to with my family, and for that I'm here."
So Hassan refused to move his family out. The Serbian owner complained to the Housing and Property Directorate, HPD, in nearby Jelani. UNMIK, helped by UN Habitat, set up HPD to bring order and justice to housing problems in Kosovo. Today, Hassan comes to the HPD office to contest the case.
She asserts that you occupied her apartment. This is the contract. There is other documents here, as you can see. It's from Supreme Court.
Yes,
yes, yeah.
This document is different. This document is not before the war. This is after the war. That document, what she gave me to see, she had right to stay only for 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
I'm sure she changed that document after the war.
You think those documents are false? Fake, yes. Okay, every single document should be verified, but by the verification team in Pristina, so we'll verify also this document. But do you assert any right on this property?
You know, that flat is not mine. I am not in that flat because I want it, but because I must it to be. Because my house is burned during the war. It's everything I lose in this house. I can't back in my house. If I can't back in my house, I will go for this flat. I don't care about the flat.
Anyway, don't be afraid. Our first task is the mediation. We have to find a solution. Maybe it's false, maybe it's not.
But is Hassan telling the truth? Does he have other property? Is he, in fact, the owner of the burned house? The head of HPD in Jelani is cautious.
This gentleman who has illegally occupied a property belonging to a Serb who fled Kosovo will have to be thoroughly investigated. we would, in the first place, like to know whether the burnt property belongs to him. And if it is confirmed that it belongs to him, I will have to postpone the eviction for 6 more months whilst he's applying for reconstruction. But if it ever happens that he owns a property somewhere else and he's profiting from the situation to occupy someone's property in town, then I'll have to use forceful means to evict him from the property.
Niš, a Serbian city a short drive from Kosovo, a city that has seen much fighting down the centuries. UN Habitat has reached out to Serbian refugees now living here in an effort to help them recover their homes back in Kosovo. Maja Drakulovic is 100 miles from her hometown of Prizren in Kosovo, forced out of her home by the Albanian KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army. She's come to HPD to try and get her apartment back or get compensation.
Dobar dan. Dobro. Kažete mi, došli ste zbog čega?
It's perhaps ironic that Maja's interviewer is also a Serbian Kosovar refugee, also from Prizren, the only member of her family to find work here. Maja tells how she lost her apartment.
Maja had just told me that the apartment was allocated to her husband, but he was killed in Korisha by the terrorists. 2 months after her husband was killed, her father-in-law was killed too.
Zbog sigurnosti mene I moje dece, ja sam morala decu da povučem.
So she had to leave because of her children, for the safety of her children and her. Kažite mi, Maja, da li biste htjeli da se vratite?
Would she go back to Kosovo? To bring order out of chaos, UN Habitat is rebuilding the land registry, the records of who owns what. It's essential, in part because when the Serbs left, they took half the land registry with them.
The land register is very important for a society, whatever society we're talking about. It will be the base for investments and for mortgages, for urban planning, for spatial planning, and you need it for taxation purposes to get incomes to the state. So we have started area photoing the whole of Kosovo, so you can have a good look of all the buildings, all the roads, and the vegetation and everything. And out of that area photos, we have produced orthophotos, which is a kind of map.
After photographing the whole province from the air, he got his team of local engineers to resurvey the whole province. They are very precise.
Yes, we know exactly where we are on the world with accuracy in 4 millimeters.
For the Kosovo people, land is very essential. And they have grown their crops on land within the family for decades, so land is very important to them. In some respects, more important than human beings at some time.
In the aftermath of war, the UN, UNMIK, arrived in numbers. HPD has a mandate to enforce the housing rights of all Kosovans, underlining their fundamental human rights to secure tenure and protection from forced eviction. Today, they'll post eviction notices here in an apartment block full of illegal occupants in the capital, Pristina.
This building is being occupied mainly by Serbs, and there are also internationals living who rent from Serbs. Well, as I told you, people have to present the documents proving that they are legally in the property. some Serbs were renting out apartments of their neighbors without even telling them about it. And they were collecting rent from internationals, earning money on somebody else's property. And at the same time, these guys in Serbia, they live in very poor conditions, sometimes just renting a garage or paying rent to some host family or living in a collective center. And they don't know that somebody else is renting their apartment out.
The question is, are we going in block all together?
Or
one by one?
Whatever you plan before you go. If you want to hit all the 5 entrances all together, go ahead and do this.
From the electricity meters, they know the apartments are occupied. Often, people pretend not to be there. Today, they're posting 23 eviction notices.
The story is that the lady behind the door happened to be a police officer from Romania who is employed here with the international police force, and she was occupying this property for a long time.
Why? It's not written on your forehead that you are a police officer?
So what we advise her to do is to produce the original documentation. Then we will not take it under administration, we will not evict them. They've got already notice served on the doors saying that this property is taken under administration, and people have 30 days to contact HPD and produce the documents. In 30 days, if nobody will answer, the door will be broken.
Kosovo is a big landlocked bowl, a plain in the heart of the Balkans. It lies in a cradle of featureless hills. It looks innocent enough, but is crowded with Serbian dead. When they died, they took their greatest civilization with them to the grave. This monument to the Serbs who died at the hands of the invading Turks 600 years ago is the kind of nationalist Serbian icon that Milosevic used to drum up his hate campaign against Albanians. Inside, poems extol the bravery of young men fallen in battle. This one praises 7 brothers for whom a nearby village is named. It overlooks the field of blackbirds, the site of the Battle of Kosovo, now carelessly polluted by their modern descendants. To the south lies Gračanica Monastery. This building is testimony to the unique quality of the Nemean medieval Serbian Empire. For travellers like the British writer Rebecca West, Gračanica refers to the reality which lies above the world of appearances, to the order which transcends the disorder of events. And every year on June 28th, Serbians religiously remember the day they lost the Battle of Kosovo in 1389. Beautiful frescoes cover almost every inch of the church. In a side chapel, the Old Testament prophet Elijah sits enclosed in a womb of rock. On either side, highly stylized little trees symbolize barrenness. The old man Elijah, wrapped in a sheepskin, throws his head back in an ecstasy of thought. He wants for nothing. A rook brings food. For some Serbs, This fresco crystallizes the central truth of this civilization: mysticism without suffering. But many Serbs remember their suffering. The Turks cut out the eyes of these figures. The frescoes, never restored, still bear testimony today. The majority of people in Kosovo are Albanian, not Serbian. Like the Serbs, their culture also reaches back hundreds of years. This dance is about Albanian unity. Slobodan Milosevic even banned Albanians from dancing before trying to drive them out of the country. Here, the warriors engaged in a blood feud are admonished to become blood brothers in the name of Albanian unity. The war over, most Serbs left Pristina. There was no government, weak law enforcement, no banks and meaningless property rights. There was no basis for an economy. Organized crime took over.
It's a cruel irony that the area that is most successful for interethnic cooperation between Kosovo Albanians and Serbs is in organized crime. Organized crime has a very strong hold on most aspects of life in the Balkans. Not only is it accepted and tolerated by the people who accept it, it is also part of the government of the region.
It's only now, after 3 years of occupation, that the UN forces of law and order are beginning to have an impact on organized crime.
Yesterday, on the 24th of June, all local bosses, director of this factory and his deputies were arrested. When local police officials came to this factory, 20 tons of tobacco were found, without any records, without any documents.
This tobacco factory in Jelani was recently closed down. The top management team are alleged to have been producing counterfeit cigarettes for markets all over the Balkans.
Director and deputies, they gave very different information. At first they confirmed that the owner of this tobacco was one Albanian businessman. Later they started to confirm that it was a European guy from Austria.
Tensions between Serbs and Albanians are greatest in the north of Kosovo. The river Ibor divides the town of Mitrovica. Once it was integrated. But now the Serbs live in the north on the left here. All the Albanians are south of the river. Mrs. Hosseini is Albanian. She has an apartment in the north. She was driven out by Serbs. David Chileron Cortizo, the local head of HPD, is temporarily rehousing her and her family in this house in the south. It belongs to a Serb who was driven out by the Albanians. Now Mrs. Hosseini and her family have refuge until she can get her apartment back. She will likely be here for years.
So this family is now starting a new life. There are 7 members, 5 children. One of the kids was killed during the war. The husband was beaten also during the conflict, and finally he died. And that's the place where they're going to be till a solution is found to unify again the north and the south sides of Mitrovica.
With most Serbs driven out of Kosovo and money pouring in from the European Union, from expatriate Albanians, even from organised crime, there is building everywhere. Albanians are homesteading with the abandon of cowboys in the old American West.
You don't need to look too far to see new construction happening in Kosovo. It's happening everywhere. The problem that we have is that we don't have a system that facilitates the legal construction of these properties.
Illegal construction is everywhere. Albanians illegally build new tops on apartment blocks, even though Kosovo is in an earthquake zone. They build illegally in the only park in town. And if there's not enough room, why let the building stick out a bit into the sidewalk? That's legal. Indeed, they've built entire neighborhoods in Pristina illegally, with no thought for a sustainable future. The river is both a sewer and a rubbish dump.
Until an enforceable system is in place that regulates this kind of activity, this will continue.
With the groups of experts that are being formed now and the legal experts which we have help from Habitat's program, Kosovo within 2 years we think that we will have an action plan being prepared which will help in making some order in all this chaos.
To bring order out of chaos, UNMIK arrived in force. For 2,000 years, outside powers have tried to repress this growling underbelly of Europe, a growling that in the past has led to world war. But now they're imposing international values.
Without the commitment by the European community, by people outside the member states, to investing in a viable, long-term economic stability in the Balkans, and particularly in Kosovo, I think that history would tell us that we can expect more of the same.
We identified 23 families which got their own houses rebuilt already, but they still prefer to use both accommodations. So what we're doing today, we're targeting 15 houses and we're evicting people. We have other people who have no roof, who have nowhere to go, and we will move these people in.
This is Europe. In Europe, we apply the law. That's it. You have 30 days warning. So you can go and see. No, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. We have the pictures. Your house has been rebuilt. Sorry, you're moving out.
In the end, what will happen for Kosovo and the Balkans is they will be integrated in with the rest of Europe. But in order to do that, there are certain preconditions that have to be put in place, like they are with any new country under consideration for inclusion in the European Union. But the road to that objective is a long one. And we're at the very beginning of that road at the moment. Today, a new regime of formal law and order is being put in place. This is the essence of why the United Nations is here in Kosovo. It's to establish justice.